I watched my wife kiss another man while wearing the dress I bought her. It wasn't just any night. It was the grand opening of her dream restaurant. The place we built from scratch. The place I spent 6 years fighting for, working double shifts, grinding through red tape, selling off my truck, draining my savings, all so Claire could have her once-in-a-lifetime culinary sanctuary. And there she stood, 3 feet from the wine bar I tiled with my own damn hands, her fingers tangled in the chef's jacket of Aaron, the man I'd hired, trusted, fed. She kissed him slow, like I never existed, like I wasn't the man who laid the bricks of this building and bled for every inch of it. No one noticed me. No one ever notices the man in the corner who made everything happen. I didn't walk up. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a chair or punch a wall. I watched. I memorized every second, how she giggled when he leaned into her neck, how her hand rested on his chest, how she whispered something in his ear that made him smirk. And that smirk, that arrogant little twitch of lips, I'll never forget it. That smirk changed me. 6 years ago, we were broke. She was a waitress at a diner in Toledo. I was slinging car parts. We'd lie on our backs in our tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling fan and dreaming about what we'd build someday. She'd describe it in obsessive detail, the soft lighting, the open kitchen, the reclaimed wood, the high-end farm-to-table menu. She always ended those fantasies the same way, and you'll be there at the front, in your suit, the one I like, welcoming everyone in. And I'll look at you, and I'll know we did it. Well, I was there, in the damn suit. But the only thing she looked at was him. Rewind 2 months. I was signing the final permit with the city. Claire was home late almost every night, menu revisions, she said. Aaron's a genius. I just need to be there more, make sure the concept is tight. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She had fire in her eyes when she talked about the place. And I was proud of her. I wanted to believe she was pouring herself into the dream, not some kitchen fling. I even caught them once, at least, I thought I did. I dropped by late, wanted to surprise her with that neon sign design she loved. Walked in through the side door, heard her voice in the office, low and breathy. Heard a man laugh. I froze. Didn't go in. Stood there like an idiot, holding that damn sketch rolled up in my hand like a baton I'd never get to pass. When she got home that night, she was all over me. Told me how much she loved me, how proud she was. Said, "This restaurant wouldn't exist without you, baby." I believed that too. But standing there on opening night, surrounded by 100 guests, a live jazz trio, and champagne flutes clinking like wedding bells, I realized something. Claire wasn't in love with me. She was in love with the story. And Aaron? He was her new plot twist. You'd think I would have done something dramatic, made a scene, called them out. But I didn't. Instead, I walked out the back door, down the alley where the dumpster still reeked of raw seafood, and sat on the cold curb in my $400 suit and $18 socks. My palms were shaking, my jaw clenched so tight it felt like my teeth would crack. I lit a cigarette. I hadn't smoked in 10 years. Didn't even have a lighter, used a votive candle some drunk lady had dropped near the patio. You don't really feel betrayal until it goes quiet. Until it sinks in, not as an explosion, but as a slow, suffocating weight in your chest. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't punch walls. I thought. I reviewed every moment, the bank meetings, the sleepless nights, the time I pulled a double shift just to pay the tile guy under the table. I thought about how I bought the land in my name, with my credit, how she'd always shrugged and said, "I trust you, babe, you handle the legal stuff." She should not have trusted me that much. Because sitting there on that cold curb, a plan started forming. Something slow, something quiet, something she'd never see coming. Claire always loved stories with big twists, the kind that made your stomach drop and your heart race. She binged mystery shows and grinned like a kid on Christmas every time the killer turned out to be the sweet neighbor. That night, as I sat in the dark behind her glittering palace of deceit, I decided I'd give her a twist ending she'd never forget. The next morning, I didn't mention the kiss. I brought her coffee like I always did, hazelnut, 2 sugars, oat milk. She was glowing, talking about how successful the opening night had been. Her phone kept buzzing on the counter, lighting up with messages. Probably him. I didn't ask. Didn't even flinch when she kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're my rock, Bill. I couldn't have done any of this without you." I smiled. I know. Inside, I was already 1,000 miles away. Let me make this clear. I wasn't just going to walk away and let them turn my life's work into their private honeymoon suite. I wasn't going to throw tantrums or beg or make threats. I was going to rewrite the ending, and every sentence would be soaked in payback. First thing I did was call Marcus. Marcus isn't a lawyer. He's the lawyer. The kind of guy who reads contracts like murder mysteries and finds buried clauses like a bloodhound. He helped me buy the lot. The restaurant was built on 2 acres of prime downtown property that had been undervalued because of a zoning error I discovered after 2 years of digging through city records. I got it dirt cheap. The building permits? In my name. The property deed? Me again. Claire never paid attention. That's your thing, babe, she always said. I just want to focus on the food. So I let her. Now it was my turn. I asked Marcus one question. Can I sell it without her knowing? His reply, not only can you sell it, you could do it before lunch, if you're ready. I wasn't ready. Not yet. I had to make it her first. Over the next week, I became the perfect husband. Every night I came home early. I brought her flowers. Took her to brunch. Listened to her talk about menu tweaks and new wine suppliers while she smiled at her phone mid-sentence and tucked it away like I hadn't seen it light up with Aaron cooking. I acted clueless. Gave her space. Let her lower her guard. And she did. She stopped hiding it. Aaron started texting during dinner. Once, she got a call from him at midnight and actually answered it on speaker while I pretended to be asleep. I heard everything. His lazy, smug voice, her whispering how he wouldn't suspect a thing. They joked about me. Called me the bank. I didn't flinch. I started showing up to the restaurant during off hours. Took photos for marketing, told Claire I was working on press kits. In reality, I was photographing everything: inventory, kitchen layout, security angles, customer data. I downloaded her entire booking system while she was upstairs taking a shower. Then I met with developers. Quietly, privately. I had a new project. If she wanted his hands on my restaurant, fine. But she'd find out the hard way what happens when you let the bank hold the keys. It all came to a head the day she asked me to co-sign a loan. Said the restaurant needed a little more runway, some quick capital for expansion. Just a bridge loan, she said, twirling her hair. You'll get all the money back. That was the moment I knew she really thought I was stupid. I took the pen, clicked it, paused. I'll think about it, I said, then kissed her on the forehead. She looked confused, maybe a little annoyed. She wasn't used to hearing no from me. But I didn't just think about it. I called Marcus again. I'm ready, I said. He laughed. Then let's burn the bridge, my friend. By the end of that week, the land had a new owner. And Claire? She had no idea what was coming. The sale went through on a Thursday. It was almost too easy. No banks, no public listing, no agents. Marcus connected me with a private investor, a real estate developer from Chicago who didn't care what the building was, only where it stood. He signed off within 48 hours. Wire transfer hit my account by noon. Full market value. I didn't even blink at the zeros. I wasn't in it for the money anymore. The restaurant was never about profit. It was about us. At least, I thought it was. Claire was at the restaurant all day that Thursday. She texted me twice, once about some new bar stools she wanted to order, and once to say Aaron had nailed the duck confit. She ended it with a heart emoji. I didn't reply. I drove past the place around 6 p.m. I didn't park. Just watched from across the street. The building looked pristine. Warm light spilling from the front windows, guests laughing on the patio, Claire inside in a white blouse and tight black jeans, holding a wine bottle like she was born to do this. Her whole life, right there. And she had no idea she no longer owned the ground beneath her feet. That night, I opened a bottle of bourbon, sat on my porch, listened to the silence. It was the first time in years I felt calm. Still, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel cruel. I just felt done. The next morning, the new owner called me. Demolition crews ready. Want me to hold off? I stared at the phone. My hand hovered over the end call button. And then I said, give it 3 days. Why 3? Because Claire had planned a massive VIP tasting event on Sunday. She'd been hyping it for weeks, local press, food bloggers, even a Travel Channel scout. It was her red carpet, her moment of triumph. I didn't want to ruin her restaurant in secret. I wanted her standing inside it when it collapsed around her. I spent Friday playing dumb. I brought her coffee again, sat with her as she showed me pictures of the new dishes Erin had crafted. I smiled, nodded, asked questions. She seemed lighter than usual, giggly, energized. I know we've been a little off lately, she said, brushing her hand over mine. But after this weekend, everything's going to change. Oh, it was, all right. Saturday night, she didn't come home. I didn't ask why. She didn't offer. I imagined her curled up in Erin's bed, whispering about how perfect Sunday would be. I imagined her saying my name with a sigh, Bill's just tired, he doesn't get it. Maybe laughing about how I didn't even notice they were in love right under my nose. But I noticed. I noticed everything. Sunday arrived. I dressed in the same suit I wore on opening night, polished my shoes, shaved, walked downtown just before noon, and waited around the corner, out of sight. People were arriving in waves, guests in suits, cocktail dresses, cameras, notepads. Claire stood at the door, glowing, radiant. She shook hands, kissed cheeks, poured sparkling rose. At 12:37 p.m., a black Escalade pulled up to the curb. Out stepped two men in reflective vests and a third in a pressed suit. They crossed the street with a rolled-up blueprint and a clipboard. One of the workers wore a hard hat. The suited man walked directly up to Claire. "Are you the manager?" Claire blinked. "I'm the owner." "No, ma'am," he said. "You were." He unrolled the blueprint. The demo permit was stamped. Signed. My name at the bottom, bold as hell. I watched from behind the corner as her face went pale. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She looked up at the windows, looked at the building, looked at Erin, who was standing behind the bar, his hands frozen on a wine glass. And then, like thunder after a flash, the jackhammer started. The back wall, the one I laid myself with salvage brick, cracked, screamed, shook. Guests screamed. Chairs clattered. Claire stood frozen in the doorway as the first chunks of plaster rained down. And me? I lit a cigarette. Walked away without a word. Without a glance. I didn't need to see her cry. I'd already heard her laugh. She showed up at my place that night. I knew she would. I didn't even lock the door. Around 8 p.m., headlights swept across my driveway, then went still. A car door slammed, fast, angry. I didn't get up. I was sitting at the dining table, sipping bourbon, reading the newspaper I hadn't touched in years. I heard her heels stomping up the steps, then the door flung open like it owed her something. Asterisk what the F asterisk 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 did you do, Bill? Asterisk. I didn't look up. Turned the page instead. Hey, Claire. Her voice cracked, rage mixed with disbelief. You sold the restaurant. You sold it. Without telling me, without warning, without anything. There were people inside, Bill. Guests, press, Erin, asterisk what the hell is wrong with you? Asterisk. I let the silence stretch. The newspaper crinkled softly in my hands. I didn't sell the restaurant, Claire, I said finally, still not meeting her eyes. I sold my land. You know, the land I bought, I owned, I put in my name. You never asked how the paperwork was done. You just smiled and let me handle the hard parts. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I stood. Slow. Calm. You didn't build that place. You picked curtains. You flirted with the staff. You pretended it was yours, but you never owned a single square inch of it. She stared at me, eyes wide, chest heaving like she'd run a marathon. You're a monster. I took a sip. No. I just finally stopped being the idiot who built your dreams while you build a whole second life behind my back. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. You knew. This whole time, you knew about me and Erin. I didn't answer. Just held her stare. You should have said something. You should have talked to me. Now I laughed short, bitter. Oh, talk? You mean like when I asked about the late nights, and you said it was menu testing? Or when you said he was just a passionate chef? Or when you F asterisk 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 I and G kissed him in my building during our opening night? Was that my cue to talk? She flinched. For the first time, she looked small, rattled. Like the reality of what just happened was finally sinking in. That her perfect life, her sparkling fantasy, was gone. Bulldozed by the man she thought would never fight back. You've humiliated me, Bill, she said, voice trembling. In front of everyone. I stepped forward, slow, close enough to smell the wine on her breath. You kissed him in front of me. The only difference is, I didn't pretend it was love. That did it. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes darted around the room like she didn't know where to aim her fury. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "You think you've won, but you've ruined everything. We had a brand. Investors lined up." I raised a hand, cutting her off. You had a lie. I had the paperwork." She shook her head slowly, then turned toward the door. "You're a real piece of work, Bill. I thought you were better than this." I watched her walk away, watched her silhouette shrink into the night as her car pulled off into the darkness. When the silence settled again, I poured another drink. It wasn't relief I felt. It was a strange, hollow sort of freedom. Not the kind you celebrate with a smile, but the kind that hits you like cold wine through a broken window. Quiet. Final. The kind you get when the storm is past, and there's nothing left standing. Not even love. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls and over 40 text messages. Most of them were from numbers I didn't recognize: local business owners, food bloggers, 2 city officials, and a few anonymous threats that I could only assume came from Aaron or one of his buddies. A few voicemails were just heavy breathing followed by a curse and a hang-up. One guy actually begged me to reconsider the demolition and restructure a lease agreement for the sake of the community. I didn't reply to a single one. Instead, I brewed my coffee slow, sat on the back porch, watched the steam rise and let the bitterness coat my tongue like armor. It felt strange, peaceful almost. Like I was finally on the outside of the circus I'd been trapped in for too damn long. Then came the real storm. Claire's sister, Megan, showed up around 10. She didn't knock, just marched in like she still had the right to. Blonde, sharp-faced, always nosy. She was the maid of honor at our wedding and probably Claire's emotional laundering machine. She wasn't here to listen. "You need to fix this, Bill," she said, tossing her purse on my couch like it belonged there. "She's shattered. She hasn't stopped crying since last night." I looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "She cheated. I'm not her janitor. She made a mistake. She made a choice," I snapped, sharper than I meant, but not sorry. "For months. Repeatedly. While I was building her dream, she was busy screwing to help." Megan crossed her arms. "It wasn't just physical. They have a connection." I stood. "Megan, walk out of this house. Now. Before I say something you'll cry about in your next book club meeting." She blinked. Didn't expect me to be that direct. That was the thing none of them ever did. I was the guy who kept things steady, made peace, paid bills, showed up with the truck when somebody needed to move. I was the nice guy. But nice died the second I saw Claire's lipstick on his mouth. Megan left, slamming the door behind her like a teenager. I didn't follow. I didn't care. By noon, the footage hit social media. Someone at the event had recorded the confrontation, Claire screaming, the new owners showing papers, the crash of plaster behind the bar. It went viral in hours. TikTok, Instagram, even YouTube had a thumbnail of her frozen in shock, hand over her mouth as the floor caved behind her. Comments were ruthless. Chef's kiss turned into a demolition. When your side dish forgets who owns the kitchen. Play stupid games, lose entire restaurants. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. The internet did the job better than I ever could. Claire tried calling me that afternoon. I didn't pick up. Then came a text. "Bill, please. We need to talk. Not about the restaurant. About us. Us." I laughed. Us died somewhere between her text messages with Aaron cooking and the smirk he gave her by the bar. I didn't reply. I archived the message. Instead, I called Marcus again. "Can we transfer the remaining funds to the cabin account?" He didn't hesitate. "Already did it. Paperwork's clean. You're off the grid if you want to be." I stared at the trees outside. Thought about the cabin we bought 5 years ago but never finished. Too many projects. Too many delays. Too many dreams that didn't belong to me. Now, it was time to build my life. On land no one else would ever walk on. Especially not her. The cabin was 3 hours north, tucked deep into the woods like it was hiding from the world. I hadn't been there in over a year. Last time was with Claire, back when she still pretended to be in love with me. We brought wine, folding chairs, a Bluetooth speaker, and a blanket she never stopped fidgeting with. I thought she was nervous about the future. Turns out she just didn't want to spend it with me. Now, I pulled up to the gravel path with the deed in the glove box and a truck full of tools. No music. No plans. Just silence, fog, and the crunch of tires over stone. The trees looked the same, but something in me didn't. There was no power when I got there, no plumbing yet either. Just the skeleton of a dream we never finished. She used to say it would be our weekend escape once the restaurant was stable. I said we should prioritize it first, get away from the madness, reconnect. She rolled her eyes. You don't get it, Bill. The restaurant is the dream. No, her dream, not ours. I set to work immediately. Ripped out the half-finished drywall she insisted on choosing. Tore down the wobbly deck her brother helped install. Burned it in a pit. It felt like therapy, loud, hot, destructive, but productive. Everything she touched, I erased. I didn't want a single fingerprint left. Out here, there was no internet. No notifications. My phone sat in a drawer, off, growing dust. If someone needed me, they didn't anymore. I wasn't going to be the man who showed up with his truck to fix other people's messes. I was going to build something for me this time. Each nail I drove felt like a reset. Each board I replaced, a decision made. And every night, when the fire pit died and the forest wrapped around the frame of my new home like a secret, I'd sit on the stairs with a bourbon and think about how damn quiet it was. And how much I loved it. A week passed before I turned the phone back on. 3 voicemails from Claire. 7 texts. Please talk to me. It's been a week. I don't want to fight. You humiliated me. I loved you, Bill. You know that. No apology. No ownership. Just ego bleeding into every line like ink and water. The last message was different. They're suing me. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud in the middle of the woods like a lunatic. Of course they were. Suppliers, investors, maybe even the travel channel that came for the tasting. They all wanted their slice of her fantasy back, and now they were realizing the dream was built on sand, and the man holding it up had quietly stepped away before the tide came in. She must have thought I'd jump in to fix it, to protect her, to be the bigger person, as she always said when she needed me to play savior. But I had no interest in saving her anymore. Instead, I wrote a letter. Claire, you always said I didn't understand your vision, that I was too practical, too quiet, too methodical. You said I wasn't hungry enough. You were right. I wasn't hungry for what you wanted, applause, admiration, that slow drip dopamine of being the center of a room. I was hungry for something simple, real, honest, something that didn't require lies to keep it warm. Asterisk, asterisk. I hope you get everything you chased. I really do, asterisk, asterisk. But don't ever knock on my door again. You won't like who answers. B. I didn't send it. I burned it. Along with the last thing she ever left behind, a photo of us from the restaurant site, back when it was still a dirt lot, and she still looked at me like I was the miracle, not the mule. The wind took the ashes north. I let them go. 2 weeks passed. No texts. No calls. Then came the letter. Real paper. My name handwritten on the front. No return address. Postmarked from the city. Claire's handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. My first instinct was to toss it into the fire with everything else she ever touched, but something about the weight of it made me curious. It wasn't long. A single page. Carefully worded. Cold. Bill. Asterisk, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything anymore. But I think I at least deserve the truth. Why didn't you just leave? Why not divorce me? Why destroy it? Why embarrass me in front of everyone I knew? Asterisk. You didn't just pull the rug out. You lit it on fire. Asterisk, you always told me that if we ever broke, it wouldn't be with a scream. You said it'd be like ice cracking underfoot, silent until it drops. Asterisk. Well, I'm at the bottom of the lake now. I hope you're warm up there. Claire. I read it twice. She still didn't get it. She thought I did what I did to punish her. That it was about vengeance. Pride. Ego. No. Claire never understood that the demolition wasn't an act of rage. It was an act of release. She didn't lose her restaurant because I was cruel. She lost it because I was the only thing holding it together, and she'd spent years quietly pulling out the nails. Every lie, every whispered phone call. Every night, she came home smelling like someone else's cologne and thought I wouldn't notice. She thought my silence was weakness, that my patience was ignorance. It wasn't. It was strategy. And when I stepped away, everything she built crumbled, not because I pushed it, but because she never built it to stand. The next day, Aaron tried to contact me. Email. Subject line, we should talk, man. I didn't open it. I didn't even delete it. Just archived it like an old receipt. That's what he was to me now. Proof of what she paid for in secret. Word around town was that he'd been fired from 2 restaurants before ours. Personality issues. Rumors of messing around with the boss's wife. I didn't vet him hard enough. I trusted Claire. And Claire thought she was too clever to fall for a cliché. Turns out she was just another one. One of my former contractors, Rick, good guy, steady hands, called to say he heard Claire had tried to lease a new space uptown. Smaller place, more rustic. She was pitching it as a comeback story. A phoenix from the ashes tale to feed to bloggers. Said she was starting fresh. Of course she was. She always knew how to spin. But what she didn't know was that I'd already spoken to the owner of that building. He's an old fishing buddy of my uncle. I told him the full story. Every dirty detail. That space? No longer available. Leased out to a bookstore chain that hates small kitchens and wants the back wall gutted. Claire wouldn't know it was me. And I didn't care if she found out. I wasn't sabotaging her. I wasn't obsessed. I just wasn't going to let her rise again by standing on my shoulders. Let her build something with her own hands this time. If she can. That night, as the wind howled through the trees and the moon hovered low over the pine line, I stood outside the cabin with a fresh whiskey and a new frame in my hand. Inside it was a photo I took just that morning, sunlight hitting the fresh siding, a workbench full of tools, my dog asleep in the sawdust. The caption I scribbled in marker on the edge. Finally mine. Not a business. Not a woman. Not a dream someone sold me. Just mine. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone else to show up and ruin it. Winter came early that year. The kind of cold that bites through flannel and sinks into your bones. But I didn't mind. The wind howled across the ridge like a warning. The sky stayed low and bruised. And every morning I had to crack ice off the water bucket just to clean my hands. Still, no complaints. Out here, the quiet meant something. There were no fake smiles, no whispered phone calls behind bathroom doors. No one pretending. Just me, the dog, the trees, and the hammer in my hand. I rebuilt the stairs first. The ones Claire always said were too plain. Said they needed a dramatic curve or wrought iron rails, something elegant and Instagram-worthy. I kept them straight this time. Heavy oak. Raw. Honest. They creaked when I walked up, like they were announcing me. I liked that. Then I redid the fireplace. Ripped out the fake stone veneer she ordered online. Replaced it with rough granite I hauled in myself from a quarry 15 miles out. Each piece laid by hand. No shortcuts, no cheap adhesives. Just sweat, sore arms, and the satisfaction of watching real flame hit real stone. Every board I nailed in, I imagined another part of her story collapsing. Her new restaurant pitch downtown. It flopped. Hard. I didn't seek out the details. They found me. Small town, big mouths. Turns out, when the dust settled after the demolition, the media didn't spin her as the broken visionary clawing her way back. They painted her as reckless, entitled, even dangerous. Investors backed out. Vendors ghosted her. And Aaron? Aaron vanished. Apparently, he took a job in Denver. Left without saying goodbye. Didn't even take his knives. That surprised me. I figured he'd stick around long enough to wring one more project out of her. Maybe ride the sympathy wave. But no. He disappeared like smoke and wind. I guess he wasn't in love after all. She tried to reach out again. Sent another letter, this time typed. Bill. Asterisk you win. I lost everything. It's all gone. You made your point. But I need to know, did you ever love me at all? Or was I just something to fix? Asterisk. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it, tucked it into the back of a drawer, and wrote nothing back. What was I supposed to say? That I loved the idea of her. That I was in love with the version of Claire who used to look at me like I mattered. Not like I was a cog in her ambition. That I used to think she was wild and brilliant and honest. And that somewhere along the way, all 3 of those words turned into something ugly? No, she didn't want the truth. She wanted closure. But some people don't get closure. Some people just get consequences. One morning, I got a knock at the cabin door. Not Claire. Not Megan. It was her mother. I hadn't seen her in nearly a year. She looked older. Softer. The makeup didn't mask the lines the way it used to. She stood there in a wool coat, holding a Tupperware of gingerbread and an expression that didn't match the holidays. I heard you're out here, she said. Thought you might be cold. I stepped aside. Let her in. We sat by the fire, no small talk. She didn't defend Claire. She didn't even mention the affair. All she said was, she doesn't sleep. She walks the halls of her apartment all night. No restaurant. No friends. Just a bottle of wine and ghosts. I said nothing. She set the cookies down. You were good to her, Bill. I hope you're good to yourself now, too. Then she left. Didn't wait for a thank you. Didn't ask for one either. That night, I ate half the cookies and threw the rest in the woods. Let the raccoons sort out what was left of the past. February rolled in like a drunk uncle, loud, messy, and full of bad intentions. Snow piled so high against the cabin door I had to dig my way out twice in 1 week. The generator gave up on the cold by the 10th, so I spent 3 days chopping firewood and living by candlelight, wrapped in every flannel I owned. And yet, I was calm, peaceful, even. The kind of peace that only comes when there's nothing left to pretend about. No one to impress. No more mirrors to polish for people who'd never look you in the eye anyway. Then came the email. Not from Claire. Not Megan. Not her mother. From her lawyer. A man named Evan Marsh, big signature, serif font, no soul. Mr. Halpern. This letter serves as formal notification of my client's intent to pursue a claim of undue harm and malicious interference with business operations. Ms. Claire Halpern asserts that your actions, particularly the sale of the land and demolition of the business premises, were calculated to cause reputational and financial damage. We are requesting a formal mediation before further action is taken. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee on the laptop. Malicious interference? That's rich coming from the woman who interfered with our marriage from the inside out and expected applause at the curtain call. Marcus called an hour later. I'd forwarded him the email with nothing but the subject line. Guess who's crying now? He was already ahead of me. She has no case, Bill. You own the land. You gave ample legal notice. You didn't breach contract. You ended it. And the malicious part? I asked. He chuckled. She'd have to prove intent. And even then, she'd need to prove you didn't have just cause. I could practically hear the smirk through the phone. Claire's lawyer wants a settlement, Marcus said. Not justice. Don't give him one. I didn't. But what I did give them was something else, something she never saw coming. See, a few weeks before I sold the land, I recorded a conversation. Claire and I were sitting on the porch. She had a glass of red in her hand, sunset in her eyes, and she told me clear as day, I don't care about the paperwork. Bill, the land's yours. I just want to play with it. I saved it. Backed it up in 3 locations. Marcus dropped the transcript on Evan Marsh's desk 2 days later, along with a friendly message. This is not a bluff. If you want to go to court, we will. But understand this. Discovery is a B*******, and Claire's fantasy might not survive the cross-examination. Asterisk. They went silent. No follow-up. No court date. No mediation. Just a final, cold reply. Ms. Halpern is withdrawing her intent to pursue legal action. And that, as far as I was concerned, was the last page of her story. But life had other plans. The next morning, I got a package. No return address. No note. Inside was a worn-out copy of The Joy of Cooking. Dog-eared, stained, spine cracked from use. I knew it well. It was Claire's favorite. The one we used when we had nothing. When we cooked together in that tiny apartment with no heat, balancing cutting boards on a windowsill and using a toaster oven like it was a Michelin kitchen. Inside the cover was a sticky note. Just one line. For the man who gave me a kitchen before I gave him a reason to leave it. No signature. No apology. Just history folded between pages of beef stew and lemon tarts. I burned the book that night. Not out of hate. Out of mercy. Because some memories are better as smoke, rising, disappearing, never to be swallowed again. The snow began to melt by the 2nd week of March, and with it, the last bits of her. I don't mean that in some dramatic, poetic way. I mean literally the final traces of Claire's presence, her voice, her perfume that used to haunt the cabin walls, the ghost of her laugh in the back of my mind. They all faded with the thaw. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped waiting for the next attempt to pull me back in. She was done. Her silence, for once, wasn't tactical. It was final. And for the first time in years, I slept like a man who didn't owe anyone anything. Then one morning, I saw her. Not in a dream. not in a memory. In town, I had driven down to the hardware store, needed new blades for the table saw, some replacement latches, a few bags of insulation. I hadn't shaved. Wore the same boots I'd been working in all week. Didn't expect to see anyone but Hank, the store owner who talks like he's chewing gravel. But there she was, across the street, standing in front of the window of a used bookstore. Alone. Hair tied up in a lazy bun, sunglasses pushed up like a headband, hands tucked into a coat 3 sizes too big for her. She looked thinner, paler, like life had turned the saturation down on her. I don't think she saw me at first, but then, just before I turned to go inside, she did. Our eyes locked. A second, maybe 2. No smile, no wave, just recognition. And then she looked away. I didn't follow. I didn't speak. I walked into the store, bought what I needed, and drove back to the cabin. That night, I split wood until my hands blistered. Not because I was angry, not because I was shaken, but because I needed to feel something. Not her, not the past, just the pain of grip, the sting of splinters, the crack of oak splitting clean down the center. Because that's what closure really is, isn't it? Not a conversation, not a reunion, not some letter scrawled in half regret. It's the sound of wood breaking under pressure. It's the silence after you hear it snap. 2 days later, a man named Nolan called me. He owned a property 2 counties over, an old mechanic's garage turn bar, with a busted roof and a liquor license that hadn't been touched in a decade. He'd heard about what happened. Said he was impressed. Said if I ever wanted to partner up on something real, something authentic, he'd back me. I told him I wasn't interested in restaurants. He laughed. Neither am I. I'm talking cabins, rentals, nature retreats. You've got the hands, I've got the land. We build 10. We keep 3. Rent the rest. Quiet money. No wives. No chefs. Just peace. I paused. Looked out the window at the soft green returning to the trees. For the first time since Claire kissed that idiot in my restaurant, I felt it. Not relief. Not revenge. Potential. Let's talk, I said. Because maybe love wasn't the dream I was supposed to build. Maybe peace was. The deal with Nolan moved faster than I expected. By mid-April, I was hauling lumber across his property with 2 hired hands and a clipboard in my pocket. 10 cabins, just like he said. Each with its own plot of land, each designed to blend into the landscape, not fight it. No polished marble countertops. No ego. Just clean wood, steel, and silence. The kind of place men come to when the world chews them up and they need somewhere quiet to bleed. It was the opposite of everything Claire ever wanted, which is probably why it felt so right. She used to talk about legacy, that her name would be on menus in magazines, that people would dress up to enter a room she created, that she'd finally be seen. I never wanted to be seen. I just wanted to breathe. Out here, I did. Nolan kept things simple. Half my earnings stayed in. Half came to me. No lawyers, no games. Just a handshake, 2 thermoses of black coffee, and a shared understanding. We were too old for lies and too tired for messes. One afternoon, while laying the floorboards of cabin 4, Nolan turned to me and said, "You know what I think?" I looked up. I think men like us don't burn down lives for revenge. We do it for freedom. The fact that it scares people? That's just a bonus. I laughed. For the first time in months, it wasn't bitter. That evening, after we packed up the gear, I drove home, my home, where the fireplace glowed and the dog slept beside the door. I opened the drawer where Claire's last letter still sat, untouched since winter. Then I took it out, stepped outside, and burned it. No rage, no drama, just closure, soft and clean as a flame licking dry paper. Somewhere, maybe, she's still spinning her story, playing victim, rewriting history with herself as the misunderstood genius and me as the villain who couldn't handle a strong woman. She can keep the story. I kept the land. The first guest checked in at the end of May. A man in his 60s. Gray beard, flannel shirt, tired eyes. Said nothing when he arrived. Just nodded once, handed me cash, and disappeared into cabin 3 with a duffel bag and a bottle of bourbon. 2 days later, he left a note in the mailbox that said, "I didn't realize how much noise I'd been carrying until it was gone. Thank you." I framed it, hung it above the fireplace in my own cabin, next to the tools I used to build everything here. Every wall, Every window frame, every door hinge, I put it there. With my hands, my time, my choice. No partners, no strings. No wife whispering lies in the hallway while pretending to believe in dreams we never shared. This was mine. Summer came fast. The woods bloomed wild and full. Bookings rolled in slowly, word of mouth only. No website, no social media. Just whispers between people who'd had enough of the noise and needed a place where their bones could finally settle. One evening, while I was cutting boards for Cabin 6, my phone buzzed. Claire. I hadn't heard her name in over 2 months. The screen lit up once, then again, then a text. I drove past the old lot today. It's gone. They're building condos. I stared at it for a moment, then replied with one word. Good. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. That was the last time I heard from her. And I hope to God it stays that way. Because some things shouldn't be rebuilt. Some stories need to stay collapsed. Claire was one of them. Aaron? I have no idea where he is now. Doesn't matter. What matters is this. When you spend 6 years building someone else's dream, you start to forget what your own voice sounds like. You forget what quiet feels like. You forget how to listen to yourself. But when it all burns down, and you're left standing alone in the smoke, you get to choose what rises next. And I didn't choose revenge. I chose peace. I chose me. Now, every night, I walk the perimeter of the cabins before the sun drops below the trees. I check the locks, test the lights, listen to the sound of crickets echoing across the hills. I sit by the fire with a notebook and write things I'll never publish. Just thoughts. Truths. Wounds that are finally closing without an audience. This place is for the broken, the betrayed, the ones who gave too much and got lied to in return. It's for men like me, men who never screamed, but still lost everything. And now? Now they have somewhere to go. Not to rebuild her dream, but to build their own.